So anyway, they would fire, those guys were good in that tank. They'd put a shell right in that hole, and it'd go back in and explode. And they'd look around over till they found another hole, and they searched there till they found quite a few holes there, you know, at least half a dozen holes along in there facing our direction. They'd put a shell in there, and by then, when our guys, they quit shooting at us, they got out and did some exploring, and they found the entrance to their tunnel, where they'd gone in the tunnel. And they came prepared with a box of dynamite. Do you know what dynamite is? It's explosive stuff. It's usually in sticks, you know, about 3/4 of an inch or an inch in diameter, you know, about that long. Have you ever seen a stick of dynamite before? Well, it comes in a case, I don't know, a little longer than this book and not quite as wide and about that tall. I guess they had a case of dynamite, and they stuffed it back in the entrance to that tunnel and set the charge off. And that effectively closed the entrance to the tunnel. And I imagine the shock wave going back through there would be very hard on anybody that was back inside. The ones that were close, they'd kill them, and the ones that weren't, I don't know, but I don't know what happened. We didn't care what happened to them, as long as we got them stopped. So then they told us to all pull back, and so we went back to the water hole that evening and set up there. And I was in a little different spot that time. First time I was out kind of away from the mountain a ways, and when those guys attacked us from down there, you know, I was looking out there, and I wasn't going to shoot and give away my position unless I knew what I was going to shoot at, you know. And I finally saw a long object out there, looked like it was slowly crawling up toward me. And the moon finally came up, and I looked at it kind of shine a little bit, and sure enough, it seemed like it keep moving a little bit, and so on. Well, the next morning, it was a coconut log.
Coconut log. What is that?
You see, your mind plays tricks on you sometimes. I could see it moving, but I wasn't going to shoot unless I knew for sure I had something to shoot at. And it was just a coconut log. But the next night, when I was in the foxhole down closer to the mountain, and there's just above us a little ways, there's a rock ledge, went up fairly steep up there, you know. But we were that night. The Japanese forces they came down after us seriously the next night. They scattered out and came down and started shooting at us in our area, because they knew where we were, you know, and everything, and going to do a lot of shooting on us there from up above us, and because they knew we weren't in deep holes and take care of us, and we could hear the rifles shooting away. It was mostly rifles. I think it was all rifles. But they had two different sizes of rifles. First of the war, they had a 25 caliber rifle that's more powerful than a 22, a little bigger and more powerful. And then later in the war, they got a 31 caliber, which was slightly larger than our rifles. We were only 30 caliber. And so you could tell the difference of what was shooting at you by the sound. And most of them were the smaller rifles, and then part of them were the bigger ones that were shooting at us. Well, when they started to get to be a nuisance, our forces, they brought up a machine gun company and set them up back behind us. Now, these machine guns, they're the kind that I was telling you about, you know, they're on a tripod, and they shoot a lot of bullets, a whole row of them go through. And they were, so they started shooting on the mountainside, but they were right behind us, so they were shooting right over our heads. But you know, I think it was every 10th bullet or something was a tracer bullet. It had a little old glow coming out of the back end of it like a rocket. And so you could see where the bullet was. So we could tell where the bullet, how far ahead of us, over our heads, the bullets were, by where the tracers were. And then also it helped the machine gunners because they could see where their bullets were hitting and could adjust their directions. So they started raking that whole hillside with machine gun fire, and that quieted the Japanese down. Then we had an artillery company who pulled up out there behind us, and we didn't know they were there until they started shooting, but they shot cannon shells over our heads and off up there. They exploded when they hit. And I didn't get any sleep the first night I was there. the second night, why, it was so relaxing that I didn't have to worry about those guys up on the mountain. That I just sat up on the edge of my foxhole, and instead of crouching down, I sat up on the edge and watched the fireworks. You know, it was kind of fun. And all of a sudden, one of those shells of ours hit in a ledge kind of up above me a ways, and I could hear a piece of shrapnel broke loose and came down and knocked a chunk of bark off the tree above my head up there about 4 or 5 feet above my head. I could hear it hit the tree. I thought, hey, you stupid guy, get your head down. Our scrap iron is just as hot as the enemy's in.
Yeah.
Just as dangerous. Get your damn head down. So I let down.
Yeah, for sure.
Waited for it to go over. So that was the main part of my battle experience there. They pulled us back. There's a couple other little skirmishes I won't bother to mention, but there was that kind of took care of that operation. That was the end of our operation. That was we accomplished our goal. And so they pulled us back and set us up in a camp to give us our parachute training. So that we'd be like the rest of the people that we joined. They were all parachutists. And so they set that up to give us our training while we were getting ready for the invasion of Japan. And that would be our next trip. Oh, this is some pictures that they took of us on that honor flight to Washington, D.C. out in St. George on our return. And here's my wife, Thelma, and my son, Robert, was my guardian. And they were meeting us back home after we'd been back to Washington, D.C.
Did you drop something on the floor out of that picture?
Yeah, it's over there somewhere. Now, I have a book right here, and this shows some of my Army pictures and stuff, and I want to show you this picture right here. Now, this one right by my finger, that's me in my uniform with my parachute strapped on, 2 parachutes. Your main parachute is strapped on your back. And if that doesn't open, you have a reserve parachute on your chest that you can pull the ripcord and deploy the second one. And so I had that picture taken of me showing what it was like to get ready for parachute training. I've got another picture or 2 over here I was going to show. Okay, this is some of the same pictures. Now, is this too close to the camera? Or is that okay?
No, that's perfect. I will probably take some in here. Yeah.
Okay. You can see this one picture over here by my fingers. That's the same picture as that other one, but it's enlarged. And then you see this bottom picture down there on the bottom row. Can you tell what that is?
Where you're jumping out of the plane?
That's one of my favorite pictures. That's me standing beside an airplane 1,200 feet in the air.
There you go. Yeah.
I really enjoy and appreciate that one. And of course the one at the top, that's the airplane, and the troops are training, getting ready to board the airplane to go up to make the jumps. Now, when we jump, we run what they call a stick. 12 soldiers will line up together and go out the door all at once. and they would take the door off the airplane and the windows out and everything else. It was warm weather over there in the Philippine Islands, and so then those 12 guys would go out the door just as fast as you go out and try to push each other out the door. And you noticed on the picture, all of the parachutes, I had my hand up like that. There's a buckle. There's a buckle there that you hook onto an anchor cable inside the airplane. And when you go out the door, you've got a strap 15 feet long fastened from that anchor cable to the back of your parachute. And when you get out 15 feet, it yanks the back off your parachute and pulls the silk out into the air in the parachute, so that and the propeller blast from the planes will help fill the parachute up, so it will fill up sooner, and you're on your way down. Well, the next picture where it shows me beside the airplane, you can see a dark spot up there at the top, and somebody said, "Well, I can't see your head." I said, "Is that your head? Did you lose your head just?" That's the head of the guy behind me, just ready to come out, and you can see my strap still, coming out the door, and and you see this little mark coming across out there, a little line strip. That's the tail of the airplane, the tail wing of the airplane.
Oh, wow.
Looks like it's going to cut me right in half, doesn't it? But I fell below it.
Scary.
Okay. And I had a little old 620 box camera that I took with me, and so there would be 3 groups of guys go up in the airplane at once, 3 groups of 12. And so when I was getting ready to go out, I handed the camera to one of the other groups behind me and said, "Will you hold that out the porthole on the airplane?" The porthole is just around on about a foot diameter or something, and no windows. He stuck it out there and said, "Now when you see me disappear out the door, you pull the trigger on that camera." And he did, and he got a perfect picture of me. And he tucked it back in his pack and then went ahead and jumped to the airplane. And so that's how come I got the picture of me there. We got that taken. And so we were in intensive training there after we took our parachute training and made all of our training jumps and stuff like that. And we were getting ready, like I say, for the invasion of Japan. And one day we had a newspaper that they would publish there, and it came out that a bomb had been dropped at Hiroshima, Japan. It's called an atomic bomb, and it said it's more powerful than 20,000 tons of TNT, of dynamite. What? That looks like they're giving a bunch of propaganda to somebody, Or was it 2,000 tons? 2,000 tons, and a ton is 2,000 pounds of dynamite. I said, they're probably trying to scare the enemy. Well, the enemy were on the other end of it, and they understood it thoroughly. It had already hit them by the time the news was given to us. And then 2 days later, they sent another bomb over, dropped in Nagasaki in Japan, and it just wiped out the whole city. And by then, the Japanese decided they better quit. If we had more than one, maybe they better surrender. And within 24 hours after they said they wanted to surrender, our whole division was out at the airfield loading on airplanes, bombers, anything that fly. They were loading us on those airplanes to send us toward Japan. And they flew us to the island of Okinawa, which was owned by the Japanese, and it was all about 2/3 of the way from Philippine Islands up to Japan, but our troops had captured Okinawa from the Japanese previous to that. They flew us to there and landed us on airfields there, and then sent the plane back for another load. And we spent 17 days there on Okinawa, camped out in a sweet potato patch, while they were getting all of our forces marshaled and closer, and there'd been a typhoon in the area that was causing a lot of problems, and they had to get our troops, our ships up there in Japan, because they were going to sign the peace treaty with the Japanese on the battleship Missouri, which was Harry Truman's namesake, named after him. And they sailed that ship right up in Tokyo Bay and had Japanese come out on board ship to sign the peace treaty. Well, 2 days before that happened, they loaded us up in Okinawa and sent us to Japan. We went into Tokyo 2 days before they signed the peace treaty. And that was because they were known for trickery, those Japanese people, treachery and trickery.
Yeah.
More treachery too. Anyway, we formed a perimeter around the back side of the city, or at least the land side of the city. All of us came around there, and the fun part was we were able to fly in and land at Tokyo Airport. Instead of our assignment was to fly in and parachute on Tokyo Airport. If we had had to invade it, that would have been our assignment, was to parachute in on Tokyo Airport. And those atomic bombs saved a lot more lives than they caused. Saved a lot more Japanese lives, and they saved a lot of our lives. I probably wouldn't be talking to you today here if they hadn't dropped those atomic bombs, because I would have been parachuting in the Tokyo Airport. That's kind of scary. That was their capital city.
Yeah.
And so anyway, all's well that ends well. So I was very thankful for those atomic bombs, because the island of Japan would have been easy to defend and hard to capture, because they had tunnels in all the mountains and the ledges all around the area there. They had tunnels and rooms in there. The whole area was all fortified, and the flat land was full of rice paddies, and they flood irrigate those rice paddies, and for protection, they turn all the irrigation water on and flood the rice paddies. Why, you could walk through them, slush through them another foot deep, you know, but you couldn't run any vehicles or tanks through them or anything else like that. And so, and what roads coming in would be easily protected by the cannons that they had concealed in these caves. And those caves and the ledges and stuff, you couldn't shoot enough bullets at them or drop enough bombs on them to destroy those ledges. Because, and those atomic bombs saved a lot of lives, theirs and ours both. So I appreciated that. After we got to Japan, why, well, I guess first I've got a couple of paper bills here, and those are, what do you call them, pesos. You see, the Philippine Islands, Spanish was their primary language at that time, and so those were pesos printed by the Japanese government as money that they used there in the Philippine Islands. This top picture is a picture of the large Buddha. Have you ever heard of a Buddha? Those Oriental people would build huge statues like that, and they're tall. They're several stories high. And this particular one right here, I climbed up inside of it and looked outside. They had ladders and stairways and stuff in there that you could get up through. And this was far enough outside Tokyo that it didn't get damaged by the war. They just took care of military targets, basically. But they, now, let's see, there's a lot of interesting things now. Okay, down here. All right, this top one right here, that's the latest styles of ladies' latest styles, especially the performers, the actresses, and stuff like that. See right up here at the top. Okay. Now down at the bottom is a pagoda. That is the Oriental people's worship houses. That's their temples. Now, do you see? Look at the roof on that. Can you see how